Welcome back to the Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast, firing up for the first time in 2026, and today I'm joined by Dr. Jon Patterson. And super excited to have Jon in office. Jon is someone who plays a major role in shaping the state of Missouri. He's a member at the golf club that I belong to, Lakewood Oaks, so shout out to all the Lakewood boys. But really excited to have you in town and be able to do this in office. So Jon, first of all, you've had a fascinating journey kind of from physician to public servant, and now one of the most influential leaders in the state of Missouri. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, great to be with you.
Thanks. I wanted this conversation to kind of be real and accessible. This was spurred on by a breakfast that we had, just getting coffee, two mates kind of talking, and I posted a picture on social, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I would love to have been a fly on the wall, because you and I touched on a lot of important things that are going on in the state of Missouri. And so for all those that are listening, a quick rundown. We're going to hit on today state income tax in the state of Missouri. We're going to talk about taxes, Jackson County taxes specifically, that have kind of been just going up and down and all around. There's been a lot of drama there. We're going to talk about a couple of Senate and House bills that are impacting real estate, specifically the wholesale legislation, as well as squatter rights, as well as institutional buyers. So all that being said, strap in, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be an awesome ride. But let's kind of back it up, for just a minute and get some context around what does the Speaker of the House of Representatives in Missouri actually do? What is that title?
Yeah, so every state has their legislature, and it's fascinating when you go around to other states and see how they do things. But generally speaking, most states have an executive, a governor, and then their legislature that's modeled after the federal system. So in Missouri, we have a General Assembly, we call it, and on one side we have the House of Representatives, and there's 163 members, and they represent usually towns and parts of towns and cities all across the state. And then you have the Senate, the Missouri Senate, and they represent a much bigger population, counties and big population. And it's a lot like the federal system. You pass a bill in the Senate, you pass a bill in the House, it's got to go over to the other side so that both sides have to agree.
So it doesn't always just start in the House and go to the Senate. It could go either way.
Yeah, there are Senate bills and there are House bills. But before they make their way to the governor's desk for his or her signature, it's got to pass both sides. So about 2,500 House bills are filed every year. Just a handful of them will make it to the Senate, and then they'll consider it, and if they think it's a good idea, they'll pass it, and they'll be negotiating back and forth until there's one that we all agree upon, and then that will be passed and off to the executive. And then, of course, the governor in Missouri can say, I don't like it, or they can say, I like it, and sign it.
So when I was doing a bit of research, is it fair to say that if Missouri was like a company, that the governor would be like the CEO and the Speaker
executive
of the House would kind of be a COO, like an operating officer, kind of second in command?
Yeah, I think it's one way to look at it. Of course, we in the legislature like to think that we're a co-equal branch. So I'm not sure we would like the COO role. But certainly the governor has his prerogatives, and he's the chief executive of the state officially. In the legislature, we're co-equal partners, and basically we all want the same thing. And so I think we're more collaborators, and we're there, and we got to work together.
So the Speaker specifically, what are your duties and obligations that would be above a regular member of the House?
Well, in terms of being the Speaker, so every year we get together, and there's 163 of us.
Yeah.
And obviously we can't go around and everybody do everything, and there's 2,000 bills. So we elect one person that says, okay, well, this person decides what bills we do, where they go, and the schedule of things. And so that somehow my colleagues elected me to do that, and it's a great honor. So the Speaker kind of looks at all the bills and says, here's 200 that we should pursue and that are good. And there's a lot of bad bills that get filed too. There's a lot of tax increases and bad things. And so the Speaker will say, well, we're not going to do that. I'm going
So
to
you were
off my vest now.
Yeah, a little toasty in here. Getting cold outside, but nice and warm in here. You kind of broke a few barriers. It had been like 150 years since there had been someone from Lee Summit as the speaker.
Yeah.
I think, and for Jackson County, I think it'd been 140 years since there'd been someone from Jackson County, first Asian American. I'm sure you're proud of that as well.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the start. I always like to talk through someone's upbringing. I believe that. And obviously, for someone who lives in Kansas City, I have a pretty unique upbringing, but I want to hear about yours because I believe that really shapes who we become as adults. Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Well, I was born in South Korea, and I was adopted by my parents, and we're from Blue Springs, when I was 6 years old. So then I've been from Jackson County. Since then, I went to Blue Springs High School. So I still keep up with a lot of people that I graduated with. And went off to the University of Missouri for college. I did medical school there, and came back to live and work, and that's kind of how we met, and have been in Lee Summit since we moved back.
Tell me about some of those early years. You have siblings?
I do have 5. Yeah.
And how were they? Were they also all adopted?
No, my sister was adopted, and then my parents had 4 kids.
Okay.
They
and
birthed 4 kids, I guess.
Where were you in the birth order?
I'm right in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever read Dr. Kevin Leeman's book about the birth order.
Birth order, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You're obviously, as a high achiever, do you kind of aspire, like, do you kind of see the similarities in your family with regard to the middle child being kind of that overachiever, always trying to keep up with his older siblings and charge? I
don't know. I think being a middle child, it makes you a peacemaker.
Yeah.
So, and my wife is a middle child, and so we don't really argue that much. So maybe that's why. But when you're a middle child, you kind of are the link between the older kids and the younger kids.
If you were to say some of the lessons that your parents, that you learned in your childhood or that still resonate with you from your parents, what would you reflect back on as lessons learned from your childhood or from your parents?
I think my parents, I think the one thing that my parents taught me is that if you say you're going to do something, do it, and to just be honest. And I think in my political life, that's been something that I've focused on, is just work with people, be honest. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And I think in life, that can take you a long way.
Yeah. It's funny, when I came over from New Zealand, the last thing that I remember my dad saying to me was something very similar, which was just simply, you only get one chance at a good name, and the de Lautour name has been long established as one with a strong reputation in New Zealand. You're not taking it to a different country. Don't let us down, basically, right? It's like, and I think you only get one chance at a good name. So what led you to practice medicine?
Well, when I was growing up, I wanted to play professional basketball, and after a while, I kind of learned that's probably not going to happen. And so I was looking at all the things, and the things that interested me were science and helping people, and volunteered in hospitals in high school and things. So I thought, well, it'd be great to go be a physician. And so I went to college with that goal in mind, and I always knew I was going to go to medical school. And then chose to be a surgeon just because when you go through medical school, you get to kind of try out all the different specialties there are. And I just loved doing surgery, being around that. So wanted to be a surgeon, and then was able to do that. And I actually came back to Kansas City and did a residency down at, it used to be called Truman. Now it's called University Health. So I have to give a shout out to all the Truman people and University Health.
Love it.
So I spent 5 years at that hospital, and you see everything. And they were, I really
so you were
look
a
at
general surgeon?
Yeah, general surgery resident. And it's hard when you're doing it, but when you look back and the people you work with and all the things you saw and all the things you did, it's some of the best years of my life. And then I keep up with all of my mates, as you would call it.
Yeah.
We still keep up. I still go on trips with them and things. There were 4 other guys, and I just have fond memories. And then after that, I came back out to Eastern Jackson County to practice general surgery.
So what was the conversation like between you and your wife when you said, hey, this calling, like what was it inside you that said, I'm going to leave behind, I assume what was a pretty highly profitable, W-2 position to then go and trade in and really serve the community? Yeah,
well, luckily it wasn't, a sudden thing. Your spouse kind of knows what you're interested in. And my wife always knew I was interested in politics and government. and found it very fascinating. And I got to know our state representative really well, Mike Searpoy, who's now our state senator, and got involved politically so that when I said in 2018, hey, what would you think? It wasn't a shock. And of course, she was very supportive. My kids were supportive, and they have to be. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
So what do you think people would be most surprised? What do you think is most misunderstood about going from the private sector to the public sector? What do you think would be most shocking to our audience to say, there's a big misconception about, politics, and this is it?
Okay, well, I think people would be shocked at how just normal everything is, and the people that are making their laws. You look at these people and they're always on TV, but and you think they're there's a little bit of celebrity associated with it, but when you get down to the actual work of it, it is 12 to 15 normal people with their life experiences in Missouri, sitting in a room, looking at a piece of legislation and saying, how does this help Missouri? How does this hurt Missouri? And should we do it? And then moving it on the pathway. I mean, there are so many people there, and we all come from different walks of life. It's just normal people trying to do, and we all want to make Missouri better, but it's just very normal people just doing normal work. And, some of the things we do are really great, but it's just anybody can be in Jeff City. There's nothing there. There's no qualification. You just have to be of a certain age and can't be a criminal and have to pay your taxes.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, I mean, to your listeners out there, I would just say, if you've ever thought about running for office, I would encourage everyone to do it. Everyone should run for something at some point in their life, whether it's student council, city council, school board, state rep, state senate, or statewide.
Well, you're 4-0 now, right? In your elections.
4-0, yeah.
So. Long may that continue.
I may have lost a student council election in elementary school or something. So, yeah.
When you think about your leadership philosophy, Jon, what do you think matters most? Is it public consensus and trying to do what you feel the people want? Is it your personal convictions? Or is it like practical results? Like, what do you think will actually get passed based on, the opposition or the trade winds that you may be facing?
Yeah, I think my leadership philosophy is it's never about me. It's about the people that you're leading. And if you do that, I think you can be highly successful. And my philosophy kind of came from surgery, because surgery is, I think it's the ultimate team sport. You have a surgeon in there, but the surgeon can't do the surgery without the scrub techs, the OR nurses, the anesthesia, the CRNAs. Everything in there has to be a team, and it has to be about the patient. So when I'm leading my group, I want to make it about Missouri, and I want to make it about our members. And so one of the things you have to do as a leader in politics is you can be the leader, but that generally means you give up your things that you're trying to get done. Instead, you're trying to help them get what they want done.
It's an interesting philosophy. I do see you so active in the community, and that's probably why. Yeah. Is because you just need to understand what's on people's minds and what are they thinking, what they care about, and what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, if we were just doing what I wanted to do, that would be one thing. But I think it's incumbent upon all legislators. You got to go out, meet with people. And I meet with you, and I know you have a certain view of things, but I could go down to the other side of town and meet with someone else, and they have a completely different view. Just like I think you mentioned the so-called squatters bill. You have a certain view, but I know people that have the exact opposite view. Yeah. And so you got to hear them all, and then try to do something that's good for everybody.
So let's dig into a few of those topics. First, let's talk about something that I'm most passionate about right now. Personally, is the Senate Bill 973. For those that are unfamiliar, this is what is commonly known as the Wholesaler Disclosure Bill. I'll kind of give it a little bit of preamble based on my experiences, but what's happening in the space from a practical standpoint is that there are kind of predatory home buying practices going on where all these gurus online are teaching people that you can buy houses with no money down and no money out of pocket, and anyone can do it to try and sell their education courses. The downstream ramifications of that are that you get these people that truly have no money and they've spent their last $5,000 on the guy's course, not anything else. And so they're out there saying, I'm a cash buyer. They put, kind of things out on their on the street corner. They'll send some text messages. They'll do some cheap low to no cost guerrilla marketing, and they'll get in the living room with someone who believes that this person can solve their problems because they say they can pay cash and close on their house. The house may be distressed or whatever, but this person needs a quick, a solution to their problem. So they'll go ahead and sign a contract, and then that buyer has no intention of buying the property at all. What they plan to do is to then turn around, throw it up on all the social media meetup groups and Facebook groups, and send it out to kind of a buyer's list if they have one, to say, hey, I locked this house up at $100,000. It's for sale for $110,000. And I say a house, really they got a contract, and they're now signing the contract. They're wholesaling the contract. And then the other person has to come in and live into the actual terms of the contract. Where homeowners and the public are getting hurt by this is that there are so many people that get left at the altar. They come to their closing day, the seller goes and signs their documents, they're waiting for the buyer to buy, and, oh, sorry, I'm unable to do so. But wait, you told me you were going to pay cash and close. What's happening? And again, I'm long-winded here, but I want the audience to fully understand what's happening. And so you have two things that can happen. Either one, they try and retrade at the last second, saying, well, hey, sorry, I know I'd offered you $100,000, but now I can actually give you 80. Because when they shopped it around, they only got an offer of 90 when they locked it up for 100. So they have to drop it way down to make any money themselves. And they're, effectively being dishonest and leaving the seller in a really compromised position. They've packed the U-Haul, they've packed up all their things and are ready to go. And either they just walk away and nothing happens, or they try and retrade and get down. So talk to me a little bit about the intent behind the Senate Bill 973, which is to somewhat addressing this issue.
Yeah. I want to deep dive into this. So when the closing comes and they say, well, we'll give you 80, and the seller says, fine, does the wholesaler get...
If the wholesaler's goal at that point, yes, would be to retrade their contract down low enough that they still get paid.
They still make a little spread.
Yeah.
That happens?
That happens.
Okay. So the bill you're talking about, of course, I'm a House guy, so I see it in terms of House bills. There's a House Bill 2175 sponsored by Representative Chris Brown. And Chris Brown, so we were talking about members of the House of Representatives. So he is about the most normal guy you'd ever meet. He used to be a high school football coach, beloved at his school, and used to teach government. And then he's also a real estate guy.
Yep.
His wife is a real estate agent, but he also does rentals and has 12 or 13 around the...
I like him already.
Yeah. So he handles a lot of the pro real estate bills that we have, and he's filed this. So it's House Bill 2175 if you go on.
Creates provisions relating to certain disclosures by a real estate wholesaler.
And you'll notice if you go into our government, if there's a House bill, there's usually a Senate bill, if it's a good bill, typically, with almost the same language on the other side.
Got it.
Because we're trying to do the same things. So what this is saying is for that seller, he would be required to come in when he's making his pitch to say, hey.
You mean the buyer?
The buyer of the house.
Yes.
And say, hey, I don't own the house. I'm just basically a middleman, and have all these things so that
when the buyer is selling it on the back end, that's why you say gotcha.
Say, okay, I'm just a middle guy, and so that both sides in the transaction know that's not necessarily who's buying it and selling it, that this is just a middle person.
So he would have to disclose on the front end to the seller, who's the Mr. and Mrs. Smith that are trying to sell their house. Hey, disclose, hey, I don't have the funds and I am not the end buyer. I'm a wholesaler, and here's a little bit of language explaining what a wholesaler is. Yeah. And then to the buyer on the back end, he has to say, hey, I don't own the house. I'm pairing you up with this. So it's a two-way disclosure.
Yeah, and that's ideally the way it would be. But on the front end, I think you could just not have these problems. If the seller of the house knew their interlocutor isn't someone that owns the house, and they would say, well, let me talk with that buyer, and then they wouldn't get so far along the deal before they find out, oh, you're not the buyer.
Some of the states that have implemented some anti-wholesaler legislation have gone to the extent of requiring some kind of proof of funds. As I was talking, I think at the breakfast we had together, where it's ironic to me that in an industry where, again, we're talking about off-market transactions that are done not on the MLS through real estate agents, but if it was on market, if a real estate agent just lists a house for sale and a buyer with another buyer's representative comes along, the first thing that they're going to ask for is, when you send in an offer, make sure you include proof of funds or, a letter from your bank showing that you have the ability to get a mortgage or bring cash to table. It's so prevalent. And yet in these off-market transactions, it doesn't happen at all. So that would be another part of legislation, I think, that would be impactful, is not just disclosing, hey, I'm not the real buyer or the real seller, but also I don't have the money, or to prove that, for those that are doing it legitimately with a real estate license and with proof of funds, to be able to say, I am licensed and here's my proof of funds.
Is that a legal requirement right now?
It is not a legal requirement right now to be
a realtor.
You do not have to be a licensed real estate agent to buy and sell real estate in the state of Missouri. So that would be another, to transact on other people's property. Yeah. Again, you talk about laws all the time. You kind of have it through a lens of like what's best for the general public. I think, you would, potentially anti-American to say you can't buy a house unless you have a realtor. Everyone wants to say, hey, look, if two people in the field, farmers are like, I want to buy your land. We agree upon a price. I don't need a realtor to come in there.
We have freedom to do that.
We have freedom to do that. But when it's someone coming in and representing themselves as something that they are not, and homeowners that are trying to exit from a really difficult situation, are getting swindled, if you will, out of their chance to not only market and timely sell their property, but also to get the maximum amount for their property. I think it's going down the wrong path.
And that makes a lot of sense because we even have in our laws. For example, I can't go and represent myself as an attorney to somebody. And so for someone to come in and say that they're a licensed realtor or whatever, I think that makes a lot of sense. And just to disclose, I don't have any interest in this property. They may have never even seen it. Right. Correct?
Yeah. No, they're a virtual wholesalers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've never seen this property, but I do have this kind of piece of paper.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you're dealing with. And the best thing would be just to give people information up front. And so that people are generally smart, and just say, hey, you're required to give them the information. You can still do this. This is still America. If you want to be this sort of wholesaler, but you got to let your customers know.
Yeah, one of our biggest competitors in the space is this guy called Chris Buys Houses, and it's actually an Israeli guy who is masquerading in the community as a local buyer.
I think I've actually gotten stuff from Chris Buys Houses.
Chris Buys Houses, and he's an Israeli real estate guy.
Where does he live?
Israel.
Okay. He's probably never been to Missouri?
I'm sure he's maybe come once or twice.
Okay.
I mean, who knows? I don't know. But it's a virtual operation. They have a call center, and they're doing virtual operations all the time. Okay. And then they have maybe one local guy that, goes and knocks on the door just to make sure the house is okay after they have it under contract. But the problem with that is that he is constantly retrading. He'll just lock it up over the phone because what can you get from Google Street View and some form of pictures? You don't know what you've even got.
So he'll call the potential seller of the house.
Yes.
And say, I'll give you
$200,000 for this house in
Lakewood. And the seller's like, oh, this is great. This is very convenient.
They sign it up. No earnest money deposit.
Okay.
And that's another issue.
Is that a requirement when you deal with a realtor? Are realtors
It is not legally required, but it is common practice. Correct.
Okay.
So, you can do no earnest money down deals. But again, EMD is there to protect the seller to say, I have a legitimate interest. I'm expressing my earnest, interest in your property. That's the idea behind earnest money deposit.
Is there anything to stop the seller from saying, I would like an earnest money deposit?
No, but the problem that
we're savvy enough to
correct, and that's the problem is that they are preying on the weak, and unlike going to the grocery store every day, every week, that you get in the habit of how things operate. This is something that is not done ever. This might be the only time in their life that they actually sell an asset. They bought it, and they've lived there for 30 years, and now they need to sell. It's the first time, and times have changed, and maybe this is how things are done. They don't know. They're effectively being swindled, by these bad actors. It's really an issue because what they do is twofold. Either one, they retrade down. And say, hey, sorry, that 200,000, now I'll give you 140, and they're literally dropping it $60,000 the day before closing, or the day of closing.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. You don't transact real estate for your own home. I mean, I'm 46 and I've bought 2 houses in my life, so this isn't something that you do a lot of.
And you're a savvy guy, and you're out there in your community. There are some, the people that we find are not only, spiritually and emotionally at the lowest point in life, but sometimes financially. I mean, they, the pathway that we give them is one that has a sense of urgency to it. They're trading a little bit of price for time and convenience. Yeah. And so we're solving big problems because they need to sell quickly and they don't have the time. If they listed with a realtor, they list in hope. And, in this market, you can have a house sitting on for 110 days. That's no big deal. But they need to sell now. And so to be able to, for these guys like Chris buys houses where they come in and waste their time, waste their valuable time in marketing, then they get to that closing table and they think, okay, I either have to take 60,000 less and close and at least get 140, or I've got to put it back on the market and I miss my window of what I really needed the cash for.
Yeah. Is that typical? Is that the game plan?
That is their game plan.
Inflated price, and then, that is truly predatory. Knowing it's not going to be 200, it's always going to be about 140.
So I think I would say that, again, I got to be careful, telling you what someone else's game plan is. All I can say that it is standard practice that they will never, ever
They'll never lose get that 200.
They will never lose money on a house because they will always, they won't live into what they are under contract for, because it's either $100 earnest money or zero, most of the time zero. Yeah. So they'll just walk away from that and then they'll just retrade.
And what's their payment structure, these guys?
Cash on the day.
Cash on the day. So they'll make money regardless of what it sells
because they're wholesaling, John. So they don't ever buy. These are wholesalers. Again, this is who we're talking about. Again, we're a home buying company. So the difference here is that, at Best Offer KC, we are buying houses, and every house that we go under contract, we buy. We actually go to the title company, we pay cash, we close on the dotted line every single time. These other people that are masquerading as home buyers never actually close. They have a lot of buyers out there. They appeal to the people that are wanting to do the fix and flip. They turn around and just sell it. So they'll market, and they're really good at pounding the phones to try and get someone else to buy the asset that they have locked up. That's their game.
Oh, so they'll never have to be at the closing. If there is a buyer, they will. So it's basically a derivative of the home buying and selling process.
Yes.
It's just a little...
And they just get paid a fee at the closing table.
And that fee doesn't matter how much they sell it for, or...
They will lock it up for 200. So the house, as an example, they got under contract at 200. If they get an offer at 240, great. They make $40,000 for bringing the buyer and seller together.
So if they get it for 140,
but if they shop it around and that 200, they were way off because it's got foundation problems, it's a leaky roof, and the best offer they get is 160. They will retrade the seller down to 140 to make their 20.
So what is retrading the seller? Renegotiate with the seller? And the seller is kind of under duress at that point.
Under duress at that point, and
that's...
And in a real bind. They either have to take the money that they have on the table or cancel the contract and move on.
And none of this is really tracked. I mean, one of the things I've learned in Jeff City with the whole realtor process, they're a pretty well-organized...
They are very well-organized. I have a huge respect for the realtor community.
I do too, and I would never buy a house without one.
Correct.
That would it's kind of like going and having surgery done by someone that's not a surgeon. I wouldn't even think about doing that. And so if you do that with a realtor, you're probably not going to be in this situation.
Correct.
You wouldn't be. But if you kind of want to do it on your own, you could find yourself.
You can find yourself in that situation.
And there's so many regulations with realtors. When you do buy a house with a realtor, you feel like you're signing 85 different things, disclosures.
Yeah, I mean, it's an
and-
important position, and I think a licensed real estate agent, which is what we are here, at our brokerage, they can give you the education that avoids any of these pitfalls and everything. So
it's worth the whatever percent.
Yeah. So anyway, back to this legislation. Where is this bill at in the state, and
so
what are the chances of this passing?
Well, the chances of any bill passing are pretty low in our government, which is, we can get into it, but that's probably a good thing because there's a lot of bad ideas. But so right now, Representative Chris Brown has filed it, and there's a senator that's filed it. So it's sitting there in a big bucket. And then it's the speaker on the House side says this bill is now going to go to a committee, and there's about 30 committees that we have. And so it'll be sent there it's going to be sent on Monday, actually, 2 days from now. And then so that committee has a chairperson, and that chairperson will then decide, is this something that we should hear the bill in a public hearing and vote on it to advance it through the process.
Do they call for private citizens to come in and give give input?
And that's the best part of it. Like I was saying before, just how normal it is. I think every person that lives in any state should have a familiarity with their state capital, because a lot of the things that happen in government it really are affected more at the state level. Mm-hmm. And you should have you should know who your elected representatives are. And so this bill will be heard on a day, and it's announced. Any private citizen can come down and testify on the bill. They can submit written testimony and say that. So I think it'd be great if, when they do have a public hearing, for you and to come down. I'm sure the realtors as a group will also testify in favor of it. In fact, I know they will.
Yep.
And just hear from people. It's another great thing is if you can find people that have been affected by this.
Yeah.
Just normal citizens. When they come down and talk about it, that's always very powerful because that's who we're there to serve. And then here's the beauty of the whole process. The people that do this, they can also come down and say, no, it's not as bad as what they're saying. We're doing this. We're helping people make transactions. We're very honest, and they can have their say. And then the committee, which is usually about 12 to 15 just average citizens that got elected somehow, they'll decide, should we pass the bill or not? And then it'll kind of go. And then that's when you see it in the big fancy chamber. Yeah. We'll again debate the bill, and then all 163 of us will vote on it and say, should we advance the bill?
So when you said passing the bill gets it to the House, and then it has to be voted on, and what percentage does it need to, of the 163 need to vote for it to become?
To pass our chamber, it has to get a majority, so at 82.
Okay. And to the majority, and then it also then crosses the aisle to go to the Senate?
Then it'll go to the Senate.
Hey, I'm learning.
Yeah, so in the committee it has to get a majority, and I think it should. Then when we go out to the big fancy room, it has to get a majority there. Then it goes to the Senate, and it has to go all over again. It has to go to a committee.
Oh, wow, okay.
It has to pass the committee. It has to go past the Senate. And then along the way, if it changes at all, and it might, then it has to come back. And we have to say we agree to those changes. And so you can see all along the way, citizens can come in, weigh in, so that when we do pass a law that's going to affect people, that it's something that's been looked at multiple times. And so when we pass it, it's got a lot of support.
So this could be a year-long endeavor?
It could be a many years-long endeavor. So let's say we pass it out of the House, in March, and then the Senate just says, we're not interested, we got more important things to do. Then next year, Chris Brown will come back. He'll file the bill again. We'll do it, and maybe the Senate will be interested next time. And then so it's just a lot of laws that we pass have been tried multiple times, and then it eventually gets done. If it's something truly important, people will keep
And is this normally January through May when this stuff?
Yeah, so the way our government works, and every state's different. I like the way we do it. We go through mid-January to about mid-May, and so if it hasn't passed by then, they all die. So most bills every year.
So busy time of year for you.
Yeah, in May it's very busy.
Yep. Okay, let's pivot. One more thing, institutional buyers.
Yeah.
I think Trump kind of came out with a tweet the other day that obviously sparks interest. From my seat, I go back to the GFC. In 2008, the global financial crisis hits, and Warren Buffett came out and said publicly, and this is about in 2009 or 10, he went on MSNBC and he said, if I had the ability to manage single-family rentals, I would buy as many single-family rentals now as I could. I think a lot of people were listening, not just me, because that was a time period where we were gobbling up as many as we possibly could.
When did he say this?
It was about 2010.
Okay, so after the
in the midst of this, pandemic, when
I remember
not pandemic, in the midst of the global financial crisis, when foreclosures were running rampant, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, he was saying, look, I believe in America. I believe in real estate. Real estate will come back. At this time, I mean, banks weren't lending. It was really difficult to foresee. Real estate bouncing back. It was just mired in all these foreclosures, and every headline for real estate was negative. And we were buying a lot. I mean, this is back when we were buying 100 houses a year on the courthouse steps, trying to buy as many foreclosures as we could and tell enough investors about them. So it was a good time period as far as, helping people through difficult transitions, as well as, really betting on the come. We were saying, look, we believe in America, we believe in real estate, and it will come back.
Yeah.
Turned out to be that way. But also I'm realizing now that that's when institutional buyers really started paying attention, and they started getting pretty savvy. And it was about 2014, 2015 when I started seeing the presence of Blackstone on the courthouse steps. They didn't come to Missouri, but I was buying down in Florida. And in 2014, 2015, we're getting outbid by this company called Blackstone. I'm like, who's this Blackstone? Like, what do they know? They're always paying more than us. And it was like, whatever we would pay, they'd be willing to pay $1,000 more. You'd bid it up from 100 to 200 to 250,000, and they'd just pay 1,000 more, 1,000 more, 1,000 more for these houses in Florida. And they were just buying as much as they could possibly get their hands on. I'm like, who is this? And well, it was this global fund. And now you've got American Homes for Rent and First Key Homes and all these different firms out there that are buying. What's driving the conversation in Missouri around institutional buyers and the voter sentiment out there? What do you feel about big corporations coming in and owning rental real estate?
Yeah, I think one thing in politics is you can always make a boogeyman out of big corporate interests from out of state.
Yep.
And so I think you're seeing a little bit of that here, because people look around and they see home prices are very high. And politicians, we love to make a boogeyman and then go fight the boogeyman. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that these big institutional buyers are necessarily what are causing home prices, especially in Jackson County, where we live, to be what they are. I think most of it is due to the supply, and we can go into that. But we make a boogeyman out of these out-of-state institutional buyers, and I don't like them either. And then of course, in Jeff City and Washington, D.C., we say, well, I have legislation that will fight that. And I think President Trump has said that he doesn't want this happening. So I think he's doing things more at the federal level. I just have to tell people, when you have this, I'm more of a free market person. Yeah. And if I want to sell my house, the government telling me I can't sell to this person, well, then that starts to become a problem. And so I think you'll see legislation like this, but to actually get it done, I think it'd be difficult, because you're going to infringe on people's rights to sell to who they want. And then I think once people start experiencing that, they'll say, well, maybe this isn't exactly what was sold to us. Yeah, and I think that's fair sentiment. And what I see, we're blessed to be able to talk to a lot of the best economists and kind of real estate prognosticators in the space, and what I'm hearing when I have conversations with them is that, Mark, like, institutional investors own such a small percentage of rental property. I think it's around 3%. Okay, yeah, it's not. If you watch the news, it sounds like, oh, they own 80% of the homes in Kansas City. It just isn't the. Yeah, it's not. It isn't the case. So. And then one thing we know about just laws in general is that there's always ways around it. So create another LLC, or and then we'll make rules on, well, you can this LLC can only own 50, well, then they'll just have more LLCs. So those are just kind of the downstream consequences of it. But again, I think it's worth discussing, and these are all the things that would come out when you have these bills in a committee and people get to come in from around the state, and who knows, maybe Blackstone would come into Missouri and say, we don't own that much. We're not doing this, that, or the other. Maybe they wouldn't.
I want to keep moving forward. We've talked about transparency and transactions and who owns housing. Let me bring it closer to home for Kansas City listeners and Jackson County taxpayers specifically.
Yeah.
Lot of turbulence. Was it about 2023 when we kind of saw that massive ramp up? As I understand it, Jackson County's taxes are always assessed in odd numbered years.
Yeah.
And so 23 was a bit of a blindside. From your vantage point in Jeff City, where did Jackson County's assessment process break down? What went wrong?
Well, I think I'm like most people in thinking that we depend on our leaders. And I think our leaders at the top really let us down. And that led to the process, the extraordinary process of midterm getting rid of our county executive and eventually our county assessor. I can't overstate how extraordinary that was. In fact, I don't think it's ever been done around the country. That someone would, that a group would, or the citizens would just say, we
lack of confidence kind of thing.
Yeah, and you're out in the middle of your term. But it really was Jackson County is ground zero for property taxes and the property tax crisis that we have. And so we were able to get new leadership, and I think, and whether you like the new executive or not, I think he's done a fair job and is much better than the previous. But it really started with our leadership, and that's why Jackson Countyans, and also extraordinary, what election do you see 90% of the people say they want? I mean, that's like your dictator level election.
Yeah.
And there's no election out there that anybody gets 90%, but 90% of Eastern Jackson County people, I think 80 something of entire Jackson County said, we want this person out. And so
we tend to put, I don't know what Frank's qualifications were. Talking about Frank White. Great baseball player.
Yeah.
Does that make him a
and very
great
nice
executive?
person?
Yeah.
And very nice person. And I think we got what we.
Yeah. What should residents expect over the next 12 to 18 months? I know that Phil LaVota's term as interim will come to a close probably a year from now, about January, is it? Or
yeah, and I don't know. I've gotten to know Phil and like him a lot. I think he has said he won't run again, and there'll be other people that run, or maybe he runs. I don't know. That'll be decided. Well, this is 2026, so that election will be this year. But I think it's a good reminder, we need to elect good people because it really makes a difference. And I think Jackson County Executive is such an important job because Jackson County really is, these days, I think, is the premier county in our great state. And to have leadership that doesn't meet our expectations is it doesn't work. So we really need to elect a good county executive, and then we need to hold them accountable in terms of our property tax situation and get that corrected. And so in terms of property taxes, let's just start with personal property tax. These are your cars for most people. I did a fun exercise the other day. My wife and I have owned our 2018 Highlander since 2018. Mm-hmm. Or 2017. And I just went to the county website and looked at our tax records. Well, if you go on there, and in 2022 and 23, the value of the car spiked way up. And so we paid more in property taxes in 2023 than we did in 2020. And
Wow.
that's because with the pandemic, car value, remember, it was hard to buy a car. So then the county said, "Whoa, these used cars are worth so much more," and so they got the tax money for these cars that were suddenly valued higher, and then they have come down. But I don't remember the county, and you probably never got a letter from the county that said, "Hey, you know what? This was kind of inflated during this time. Here's your money back."
Didn't get that letter.
You didn't get that letter from the assessor. So I think one of the things that we can do in Jeff City is to say, let's lower the rate that we tax personal property, and give some of that money back. So right now it's 33% of the assessed value. I think we could lower it 10%, 15%, and all you'd be doing is getting that money back. So if your listeners out there, now I know you probably don't have a car older than 3 years.
I do, actually. Yeah, I'm not a car guy. I'm a real estate guy.
As a fun exercise, go
I will.
take a look at the values. And I bet you it spiked up in 2023, 24.
Yeah, I have a 2017 and 2019.
Yes,
Yeah.
so look it up, and there'll be spikes in those years. And, you do well in life, and it probably didn't affect, you going and buying groceries. But, I mean, these kind of things.
Big deal,
Yeah, and they've gotten this money. They never
Okay,
get
so
it
let's
back.
jump to real estate taxes.
Okay, real estate taxes.
Yeah, that's kind of most
Yeah.
of my listeners will be most interested in that.
Okay.
So especially for real estate investors, single family rentals. Like, what is your advice? Do you appeal? Can you still appeal aggressively? Like, do you just have to eat it? Do you have to plan for kind of budget volatility? What should they expect from Jackson County?
Okay, so if you're a real estate investor, well, again, I think on this, I've actually even texted Phil and said, hey, can you help this constituent out with their things? And so he is 1,000 times better or 1,000,000 times better than what we had. In terms of doing your appeals, there's still a process. I do believe we're getting our overpayments for our real estate back, but you're going to get it back in terms of credits as we go forward. There's no money to just
So
write
is
you
it
a check
fact
right now.
that they should have been capped at a 15% increase?
Yes, and the courts have said that, the state tax
So
commission.
if it went up by more than that, they could go back and appeal.
Yes, and
There
they
would be
should do
some
that without an
exception.
appeal.
So, well, there should be some exceptions, I assume, right? Where
New construction.
Yeah, there you go.
and-
So, some of my investors, the county is extremely inefficient, and they didn't realize that new construction had been done, and so they for a year maybe they got hey, it's still land.
Yeah.
And didn't realize. But then it went up, and it went up quickly, and so
Yeah.
it's just been a bit of a rise for most people.
Yeah, and all we're asking for as taxpayers is fairness.
Yeah.
If you own $1 million house, and you should, in our current system of funding our schools and things, you owe taxes on that, and that's
Yeah.
fine. And you know that when you buy $1 million house.
Yeah.
But when you buy a $100,000 house or a $200,000 house, and the government suddenly assesses at $450,000, and we see this in the commercial space as well, then that people can't sustain that. And I remember last summer as I was going around and talking with constituents, there was a guy that had a for sale sign, and he looked about our age, and I said, "Why are you moving out?" And he literally told me, I can't afford the property taxes anymore, so I have to get rid of the property and then go move somewhere else. And that's not what we want.
Okay, staying on the theme of taxes, but pivoting to income tax.
Yeah.
A lot of my investors are business owners and, savvy guys.
Yep.
We all know that Tennessee, Florida, help me out, what are the other, Texas, pretty sexy states with no state income tax.
Yeah.
Is there any way that Missouri could ever get there? Is there purview for that to happen in the next 10, 20 years?
Well, that's what I'd like to see. And you look at all these other states, and you called it one thing, but I like to call them, they're just supercharged states. And probably a lot of your investors like to live there because a lot of them do well. A lot of them have good incomes. And
if they have a big exit coming, like that's the big thing.
Right.
If they are a business owner, let's say that they own a dental practice or a medical practice or something where they have successfully transitioned out, they're
Or
sitting in the owner's
manufacturing.
box. Yeah,
they own a small thing that makes widgets.
And now would you move to Florida for a year or two
before you sell your company? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can actually track that. You can actually track how people that make a certain adjusted income, where they go. You can actually track that, people that have done well in St. Louis, they love going to Collier County in Florida, live there a year or two, then sell their business. And then what we don't want is then they don't move back.
Yeah.
And their kids have no reason to come back and live. And so people move to Florida, people move to Tennessee for that reason a lot of times. And so I think if Missouri had a better tax structure, we could be one of those states. And I'll give you an example. In 2023, 20 to 22,000 Californians moved to Tennessee. Now, why would they do that? Because California's got great weather. They got great tacos. They got things to do outside.
Yeah.
What do they have that's bad, though? They have a punitive tax structure. I think the highest marginal rate out there is 13% for state. So they're moving, obviously. And you have to say, well, a lot of that's probably due to taxes. So if you're moving due to taxes, what would you be doing? You'd be looking for a good place to go that has good taxes. And as they look across the country, they've seen Tennessee, and I think they think, oh, wow, that's great. They have no income tax, and so they move there. So 20,000 people just in 1 year. I think in that same year, about 8,000 of them moved to Kansas City. But as they're flying over Missouri, and Kansas City's it can be as great as
dude, it's the
Nashville.
best. 100% it can.
And we should be attracting 25,000. And a lot of them are Gen Z. They're millennials. They have kids. They spend money. They do things. They bring a lot of vitality.
Okay, so devil's advocate sounds good. But how much? What percentage of the Missouri state budget is brought up as state income tax contributing?
Well, of the money that Missouri brings in, it's probably about 2/3.
So how do we overcome let's say that we could wave a wand and magically we have no state income tax. Where do you make up for that? And is there a viable option to make up that delta?
I think there is, and I'll give you one example. Of course, we can't get out of paying taxes. We got to, fund our government, and then a lot of the way we do it is sales tax. Our sales tax hasn't changed since the 30s when we made it. So it's 100 years old. And so if I went down the street right now in Blue Springs and went to a bookstore and bought a magazine, I would pay a sales tax on it. And that goes to the state and the community, and it helps pay for things. But I could also sit here, go on my phone, and on my Apple magazine subscription, read that same magazine and not pay a sales tax. Okay. So I think there's a base, and we call that broadening the base. And I think it's fair. If I'm going to pay a sales tax to read the magazine here, I'm okay with paying sales tax for reading the magazine on my phone. And then so I would like to see more of our revenue that we use to fund the state come from that, because I have a choice on whether I read the magazine or not. And say I don't have to pay as much income tax, or hopefully no income tax. And so you do your income taxes every year. Call a friend in Texas, call a friend in Tennessee and say, do you file a state tax return every year? And they'll say, no.
Wow.
Yeah, they just don't. They don't have
Federal return is the only return they do.
Yeah. And in Missouri, it's 65 boxes, spouse separations. And so there'd just be a lot of benefit, I think. And as a free market person, I think when you tax something, you generally get less of it. And so taxing people's work, their productivity, that's not the best way to do it. It's more efficient to just say, hey, keep your money, go to work, you know how to spend it. If you want to go buy magazines, washers, dryers, refrigerators, you have a choice to do that.
When you think about Missouri's future over the next 5 to 10 years, what's exciting you the most, and where do you want to dig in?
Well, I think, and that's why I'm so passionate about the income tax modernization, is that I want it to be a state where we have 20,000 Gen Z and millennials moving in every year. Where it's desirable. Yes, and that will help everyone. Your home values will go up. We'll have fun things to do in town, and people bring energy to a place. And then, my kids go to public school. I went to Blue Springs School District. They go to Blue Springs School District. And so as someone that believes in public education and the value of it, bringing in more people will help. Because right now, our public school enrollment's decreasing. And so what we want is all these people that are having kids and running businesses to move to Missouri, and I think that'll help public education as well. So that's what excites me the most, is doing things that make Missouri want a place where people want to come. And I'm not happy with 8,000 Californians. I'd love to have 30,000 Californians move to Missouri every year and say, hey, this is pretty great.
What do you think would be a cautionary, red flag that we would have to watch out for, that if Missouri gets this wrong, that we would be heading in the wrong direction?
Yeah, well, I think there's famously another state, one that touches us probably, that has tried it. And if you look at how they did it, I think they did almost everything wrong.
Tried what?
Getting rid of the income tax, reducing it. And so people bring that up pretty frequently, and I think it's actually a good thing because they've shown you how not to do it. Now you just have to go out and do the opposite of what they did. And my prediction is once Missouri does it, that state will try it again.
Appreciate your insight there. Pivoting back to kind of a pro-landlord legislation that I think you were pretty passionate about. You referenced it without me even bringing it up when we had breakfast, was the squatter laws.
Yeah.
You're actually a real estate investor. You've owned some rental property. Talk a little bit about what your thoughts are on squatter laws, where they currently stand, and then what you're trying to do to be a little bit more pro-landlord.
Yeah, well, we can't talk about that without talking about previous legislation that we did. I don't know if you remember, but Kansas City had an ordinance that said if you're a landlord, and there are a lot of investors out, I mean, your neighbor probably has a rental property, and that's great because it gives people places to live and succeed. Kansas City said you cannot ask people what their source of income is.
Man, we had to pivot our whole marketing messaging.
Well, and you don't own any in Kansas City.
We don't own anything in Kansas City, the inner city, but we certainly do on the skirts, like down south Kansas City, around south of probably 75th Street.
Yeah,
we do own rentals there. So anything that we were advertising, kind of in the Grandview Triangle area that had a Kansas City address, we were deeply impacted. by this.
So you were impacted.
Yeah.
By it. So and that's just one of the things about government and laws and things is these ordinances and things that are trying to help people actually hurt them, because then you're less likely to rent to someone. And we want landlords to have properties available to people so they can have places to live and have housing. But that actually hurt people that are looking to rent. And so what the state did is they came in and said, you cannot have these ordinances. That bill actually passed, and so you shouldn't be dealing with that in Kansas City right now.
Correct.
You should be able to ask for a credit report and previous history and your source of income, and that helps you get better renters that succeed. And then hopefully those renters can go out, succeed in life, and be property owners of their own. And then, of course, people that occupy property that they're not supposed to be in, we don't want them doing that. And we've passed legislation that says that you should be able to get an order and have the sheriff come in and get people out that aren't supposed to be there. And there's legislation that we have currently that says if you do that, then you're not going to be liable for problems that arise from that you have every right to your own property.
You mentioned last time we talked that it was, it got put through in a bill and then got smacked down, but not to any, it didn't get, downplayed through any right of its own, but it's kind of this craziness that sometimes in a bill, it's not just voting on one thing.
Right.
There's
maybe 50 things, which I don't like. But
is that just a necessary evil based on time commitments?
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, as you said, in May, things get busy. Well, one of the things that we like to do is if there's a bill that's going to pass, we like to say, hey,
throw something
pass
in there.
this one on there too.
You'll get my vote if.
Yeah, and so you'll have these bills with 50 or 60 different provisions, and then if there's something else that's unconstitutional, then the whole law gets thrown out. And so
this was a
there was something it was on the bill, something else in the bill didn't work, so it got thrown out.
It was a casualty of something that we didn't want to have happen.
Yeah,
but now it's coming back through, and you believe that the squatter bill will pass.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and then we just have to make sure that it's on something that isn't going to be struck down. So,
one hot topic that I mentioned last time briefly was term limits. I've always been a big fan because you mentioned that your time in the house is coming to a close
this year. Yeah, you get to serve 8 years,
and you're in your 8th year.
Yeah.
So first of all, what does the future hold for Dr. JP?
Yeah, well, I've made the decision to run for state senate. So we're talking about House and the Senate, and our current senator is leaving because he has term limits.
Yep.
And so there'll be an election for that this fall. And I think I would love to continue my work for Eastern Jackson County there, and we'll see how that works.
Love it.
But in Missouri, we've got 8 years for the House, 8 years for the Senate. And 8 years if you're the governor, and I think term limits they're good.
What are the cons that we may not be thinking about?
Well, So let me start with this. Like in Congress, there are no term limits. And so some of those people have been there for 40 years, sometimes. And I don't think that is good. I think, there should probably be some limits on that. The bad thing about term limits, though, is you want your people that are representing you to know what they're doing. And, you get to Jeff City, and for the first 1 or 2 years, you're just like trying to find out how do things work, where are the bathrooms, how does a committee work. Then you're kind of effective for 2 or 3 years, and then after that, it's time for you to go. So you constantly have 163 people in the House and 34 people in the Senate that are kind of learning on the job. And you think, wow, this is our government. They make a lot of important decisions, and it's just this constant churn of people that are kind of learning what's going on. And generally speaking, I think we do have term limits. Like you get to go, or your family gets to go vote every year and say we like this guy or we don't like this guy. So that's one of the problems that we have with term limits.
Appreciate your time. We're rounding to a close. Just want to kind of delve back in a little bit about your leadership style. You've now carried some pretty major responsibility, as we've learned through both medicine, through your surgeries, as well as government. How do you handle the weight of this decision making?
Well, one thing is I don't take myself too seriously. I think that helps. Just got to realize that everybody's there. They all have their own goals. They've all, everybody is very intense at times. But when you've worked a job where the worst thing that can happen is, someone dies or you're not able to save someone, the things that happen in government don't seem as important. And so I think you just have to keep it in perspective. And anything that happens to me in Jeff City, I know is not nearly as bad as things that are going back home and Lee Summit for someone else. They have much bigger problems than not passing a bill or having someone in the newspaper say something bad about them.
Do you feel that, more along the lines of, man, I really feel like I've made an impact, or man, I wish I could have done more but you feel like your hands were tied based on the way that the political system works?
I'm happy. I wish we could have done more, but I'm not disappointed with what we did. I look back, we passed a lot of significant legislation. One of those has to do with property taxes, Senate Bill 190, and that's the legislation that says, hey, if you're 62, your property taxes aren't going to go up, and you're going to have that level of certainty and predictability. And you wouldn't believe how many seniors you go around and talk with and say that has made a difference, because they're on a fixed income and they know what their taxes are going to be. And so we don't have one of these seniors that are on Social Security to get a big bill and they have to move out, or the county will take their property. Worst case scenario, that's made a significant difference. I would love to get the income tax done, because I think that would make a difference for Missouri. And then if I go further in politics, I'd love to continue that work.
Okay, so one political question, then I want to delve into a couple of fun ones. But if a young Missourian wants to step into leadership one day, and you said everyone should run for something,
I think so. Yeah.
Where would they start? What would they do? What should they be watching, learning, trying to do?
I think a great thing to do is just kind of be involved. So if you're just a young person out there, and everybody has their political leanings. If you're a Republican, there are little Republican clubs and meetings. I would start going to those. If you're a Democrat, start going to those, talking about ideas, meeting people, meeting voters that you'll need. And then once you get to a point where you have the time and the financial stability, because none of these things pays very well, or at all, decide what office you're going to run for. So like school board. I think school board's a great thing to run for, especially if you have kids in public schools. You have to run in an election. You have to go out and talk with voters. I don't believe that's paid. So again, you're giving time, but you're not being paid. And then one day you got to show up to the city hall, sign up, put your name on the ballot, and that's it. That's how it all starts. And then you got to go out and meet neighbors and say, hey, I'm running for school board, and I'd love your vote, and these are my ideas. And then on
well, I want to
day.
credit you and thank you. You've been you're so good at the community thing. You're so
Thanks.
you're very relatable. For a politician, sometimes they can feel. You mentioned earlier that they seem almost like celebrities in the field and unapproachable, and you've never been that way. You also very meaningfully wrote a letter to our son when he got into the University of Missouri. Which he felt very appreciative of, and my wife was super impressed that you would take time to write that letter. So thank you for just being involved in the community. It means a lot. We met on the golf course. One of the fun traditions in this podcast is that I ask, and I'd love your thoughts on golf as a mechanism for networking, first of all, and then I'll get to the question in the end. But tell me a little bit about your golf background, why you love it, and has it led to interactions, networking possibilities with your position currently?
Well, number one, love golf. I'm pretty typical golf nut, and that's how we kind of know each other. I think it is amazing for networking and for politics because when you spend 4.5 hours with someone, I feel like when you play a round of golf with someone, you've known them for 20 years.
Yeah,
like that's all you need. You just sit, you're talking. And one of the things is you also kind of get to see how they
handle adversity,
how they handle adversity, how they handle everything, just their vibe, their just the way they do things. And it's great for networking and building relationships. How many times have I played golf with someone and then they're like, oh, we should play with Johnny over here sometime and go to his course, and then just talking. And then it's a great conversation if you're with another person and you spot it's an Oakmont shirt. And then you're like, oh yeah, I played there. It's great for everything. And then it's also a good physical. It's exercise, it's a release. When you're playing golf, it's hard for me to think about anything else. It takes your mind off things. And then recently, my daughter has really taken it up. So to spend time with my daughter doing it, that's invaluable. And so it's the best.
It is the best. I think my recent story going back home, getting to spend 9 days traveling around New Zealand, just my son and I, was pretty special on some amazing golf courses.
And just to follow you on social media and see all those courses, because you had some good pictures and things. It was
incredible. Love to get you down to New Zealand one day.
Yeah,
that's a different time.
List.
Fun tradition on the Mistake for Real Estate podcast is kind of ending with a dream foursome.
Okay.
Because golf isn't just a walk for me. It's kind of 4 hours of meaningful time with people that I respect and enjoy. I recently got to go back and spend time with my son, my dad, my brothers on the golf course.
Yeah.
So for you, a little bit bigger than your immediate circle. Think historical figures, past or present, living or past.
Yeah.
What course would you be playing on, and who would be your ideal foursome?
Okay. The course, of course, is Augusta National.
Of course.
Okay, I'm sure everybody says that. Okay.
Have you played it?
No.
Okay.
I have not.
There's a dream.
That's a dream. So the people that come to mind are Michael Jordan. Maybe like a Steve Jobs, and then probably like a Ronald Reagan. He's a good political figure. He'd be great for stories and things.
Business, politics, and sports. You got it all covered.
Yeah, I mean, huge Jordan fan growing up, and then I know he's a fantastic golfer and takes it very seriously. I wonder what the bets would be.
I think Reagan would kind of temper that down a little bit.
Yeah. Come on, boys. Let's just play for fun.
John, this has been super fun, and I know when I posted this, the picture of us on the socials, I got so many people reaching out saying, hey, what did John say about this? What did John say about that? Yeah. I know it's going to be impactful just to kind of get your take on it all. If they were to follow you and kind of keep up on things, what's the best way? Instagram, Facebook, how can they be a part of your journey?
I only do the Book of Faces, so I'm on there and got a campaign page and a personal page that I try to kind of do.
Yep. Awesome. So that's just Jon Patterson.
I think so. Yeah. I think if you search it.
Yep. Good. We'll have a link to that. But appreciate you coming in. I know it's going to drive a lot of value to our investor base, and it's been super fun for me too.
Yeah. So great to be with you.
Thanks so much. Okay.